The video will start in a second, but I just wanted to mention I have a Discord and an Amino. The link's in the description, so thanks. My knowledge of Fire Emblem only goes back to Awakening, and I played it when I was 12 or so I can't claim to be an end-all be-all expert on everything about Fire Emblem in the slightest. What I do have is opinions and thoughts on LGBT representation in video games, considering I'm LGBT myself. I already touched on this in my review, but I wanted to get more in depth into this specific issue. So here's some things about what I think they could do to fix later installments to avoid people thinking that the game is queerbaiting. Also, spoiler warning, if you haven't already S-classed all of the same-sex options, I will be talking about their individual supports and other information you learn about Byleth. So if you want to keep from knowing that, don't watch this video. Starting off, just going to list down how the S support actually goes for all of the same-sex S support possible. Edelgard. Honestly, Edelgard is probably the most guilty of being queerbait. She shows signs, at least, of having a crush during the entire story of Crimson Flower. And this is regardless of if Byleth is a male or female. But if you don't know, Edelgard calls Byleth her dearest friend when Byleth gives her the ring. The problem with this is it gives the opportunity for people to claim it's platonic. She never says marriage or wife or even any form of bluntly romantic statement. She does want to spend the rest of her life with Byleth, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's romantic. At best, it implies a romantic relationship, where it should have been confirmed. It is important to note that regardless if you are male or female Byleth, Edelgard still calls you her dearest friend. But that doesn't fix the problem. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not a positive thing either. It would be so easy for them to replace the word partner with husband or wife, or if they didn't want to actually change the lines, soulmate or even spouse. The point was either to save time or to not directly imply one of their poster characters is LGBT, or at least have plausible deniability. Sothis. I don't even know where to start with this. She doesn't exist in the material world. She looks around 11, and she sounds around 11. On the bright side, I guess, she clearly is really in love with female Byleth. She says it like 10 times, and the phrase marriage and actually says marriage vows, like through sickness and in health. But it's so weird, and she looks 11, and is like 1,000 years old at the same time, more than 1,000. Fire Emblem really needs to stop doing this. There's an entire race of these lollies. I don't know why they keep doing this. They should have learned their lesson by now. This is not a good romance option, but to be fair, if it was anyone else, it would have been a very clear romantic intention. Too bad it had to be her. Mercedes. I don't have a lot to say about this. Mercedes does indeed profess her love for female Byleth, and female Byleth responds with actually suggesting the two get married. There isn't much to fix. This is rather good in how it's written. It makes it about as normal and supportive as you would expect. It doesn't leave room to say, well, maybe they're just really close friends, which should be the goal when trying to avoid people thinking you're queerbaiting. Dorothea. Dorothea is chaotically bisexual through the entire game. Literally, from her C support to her S, she's big brain bi. And it's written all right. She clearly professes her love, and Dorothea does straight up ask clarification if Byleth is proposing to her when she does. Byleth nods yes. Overall, it's very clear and romantic. Dorothea and Mercedes have two of the best examples of how to write a lesbian or bi relationship, at least in Fire Emblem, but overall there is quite a few issues. That isn't to say that they shouldn't strive to write characters more like this than like the other options. Finally, Rhea. This is a weird situation. Also, weird spoilers. Rhea is kind of your daughter, but also your grandma somehow. This option is only available in the Silver Snow route, to my knowledge, and it isn't exactly not romantic. To this option's credit, Rhea proposes to Byleth, and Byleth pulls a Uno reverse card and proposes right back. Rhea even says she loves Byleth very much. The problem I have with it is how weird Rhea is about it. She talks about creating Byleth and how Byleth was supposed to be her mom for like half of the time, and Byleth ends up being combined with her mom. I don't know. It's just awkwardly written. but nowhere near as weird as Sothis as support. It's an alright example of how not to queerbait, but it's still very, very odd. Now for the dudes. Linhart. Linhart is very in character, mentioning bluntly yet somewhat shyly that he wishes to be closer to Byleth. He even goes so far to say he wishes to be his, and vice versa. Once he proposes, Byleth says he loves him back, and it's all around rather sweet. It's not the most romantic thing, but it's incredibly in character for Linhart. It's clearly romantic and a good example of how to not beat around the bush and just have Byleth confess his feelings for him and vice versa, like I said before. Gilbert. He literally just swears loyalty to you as a knight, asks you to call him a different thing, and then talks about his wife. Alois. He's awkward for a minute and 30 seconds, and then he says he's your big brother. That's all. That's all you get for the dudes. There's one romantic option, a dad and a big brother. Why is this? Is it intelligent systems being afraid for putting gay relationships in their games? Is it because they find lesbian relationships more normal? Or worse, more attractive? A mix of the three? I mean, come on. There's hardly any female options as there is. But there's somehow significantly less options for men? This is technically a step up from Fates that, to my knowledge, only had one option for male or female, but it's only a step forward with one foot. Fire Emblem has two routes it should follow, and it split the difference in the worst ways possible. I can see two ways of fixing this, and I'm not demanding everyone be gay or a lesbian. The first would be not to even consider sexuality. Basically make it whoever can be romanced by either sex. It doesn't have to be written differently, just have the voice actors say two different versions of a sentence, one with husband and one with wife. Or, like I said before, just have them mention they're getting married. That's the least amount of effort, and it would still work so no one would complain. The other option is more realistic, but probably less liked. In a cast of 30 or so people, have 2 or 3 of the characters be gay or lesbian. Make it so they can't romance the opposite sex, and make it clear there's romantic feelings between the two when it is of the same sex. They could also add some bisexual characters as well. Not everyone has to be gay or a lesbian or bisexual, but statistically, there would be a few. And if it was just 2 or 3 or maybe 4 characters who fall under that umbrella, all they would have to do is make sure that they undoubtedly love the player, and no one would be able to claim that it's queer baiting. Unfortunately, Fire Emblem Three Houses went straight down the middle of the road and picked the option of not very many same-sex supports, and even the ones who are don't necessarily keep true to that. It's unfortunate because the game is really, really good, and it just missed the mark. I hope the series doesn't have to keep taking baby steps like it has and can finally figure out how to implement LGBT options into their next game.